Boom, and we're back for another episode of AlphaCast. This is going to be a very special one. We've got a couple guests on the line here with us, joining us today. We have famed healer Roman Christian Hafner from Switzerland, who's joining us, along with Philipp von Holzendorff from 9010, which we've already done a podcast with. If you haven't checked that out, please, it was a few weeks ago that we did that, where we introduced the 9010 technology to our community, which I'm wearing right here, one of the power capsules for those watching. And for those who are familiar with our channel, have been watching us, are probably very familiar with 9010 by now. But we're going to dive deeper in it today. Let me introduce our guests real quick for those who aren't familiar with them. Roman Christian Hafner is a healer out of Switzerland. Since he was born, he has the ability to see and describe energy fields. He calls this ability read and scan. This makes it easy for him to see people, places, animals, and objects energetically, and as a result, to recognize where there are blockages and where there are which energies in the river. He recognizes what the person or place or an animal needs to be in harmony and harmony with themselves. And sorry, we're translating this from another language, so there may be some issues there. He's very happy to play with these energies, though, and support others to get into their own strength and energy and to stay there. For more than 18 years, he has been working as a coach and mentor in personal contact over the phone, Skype, and he regularly gives seminars in Germany, Austria, and currently with a special focus in Switzerland. For him, it's an absolute fulfillment to live out his gift, to help people with everything he does in his with these frequencies, and we're so happy to have him on here today. We also have Philipp von Holzendorff, who we did a podcast with already, who is quite accomplished himself with his Carbon 60 company, and as well as everything he's been doing, getting out the word for 9010. So just a brief kind of a summary of what 9010 is. I'll throw it over to Philip. And of course, we have Dr. Bear Paul Lando here as well, who joins us on every AlphaCast. And he has done some exciting work in the lab yesterday in relation to what we're covering today. So, I mean, where to start, guys? I guess I could do a quick overview of what the subject matter is for today, and then I would like to throw it over to Philip to maybe just give a quick, brief summary, once again, of the 9010 technology, and then how you have been working with Roman in terms with this new exciting developments. As far as what we're going to be covering today, there's been an exciting, essentially, Roman has downloaded a new healing frequency. And I'll let him kind of explain how that works. And they've been able to burn that with the 9010 cube into a power capsule. And theoretically, the idea is that this is a whole new type of frequency to allow humans to rapidly heal. So hopefully I kind of summarize that in the best way. But Philip, how about I throw it over to you, and you can kind of give us a little 411 on where you're at with this.
Sounds good. And did you want me to give a quick overview about 9010 tech? Also,
yeah.
Is that something that everybody knows already?
Maybe the quick cliff notes on it, just for the new people that are listening that haven't heard about it yet.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So it's a quantum technology and frequency medicine. So the founder of 9010, Oliver Schacke, invented the possibility to create a concentrated quantum energy field. And with that, copy and transport any frequency you would like to into any object you want to. That means you could take a frequency of a moringa, a plant, for example, or of vitamin C, or what have you. Any frequency that exists can be copied with that technology into any other object. Now, also you can, with that technology, burn quantum energy into objects as well, and on a lasting basis. Now, combining these two, you have the ability to actually, if you have this little capsule here, for example, which is one of the products that 9010 has invented, there's frequencies in this capsule that you see, And within it, there are titanium spheres that are charged with quantum energy. And the quantum energy actually boosts out these frequencies that are in here so that they can, when you hold them, they basically get into the system, into the body, and can promote healing or do other things depending on what the frequency is, right? And can do various things. And there are other products like the water bottle works in a similar way. If you put water in it, actually, you can eliminate cesium-137 within 30 minutes only, which typically would take hundreds of years, and you can't even completely eliminate it. And you also can then drink just amazing water. Lastly, 9010 also makes the actual technology available with which they can create these products, because the philosophy really is that this is something that is for humanity. It was invented by someone, but that someone doesn't want to keep it for himself. He wants to offer it and get it out there, right, to the benefit of humanity. And that is also what 9010 stands for. And after that, I'll be done. 90 means 90% of the profit to the 9010 community and projects and charities that the 9010 community would like the funds to go in once the profits are there. And 10% of the profits will be kept for 9010 to keep developing. That's in a nutshell the concept. And I think what's so amazing with that is this is a field that's just starting, and frequency medicine is the future. And I'm humbled that we started talking about, the current virus situation, and, people are panicking and all that, and what can be done. And I think there's something, that we can contribute here.
Yeah, I would say so. And so let's go ahead and dive right into this. I would love to get into what you guys were up to at your retreat a couple weekends ago, and how this all came about with these new developments using 9010 and this downloaded primal human healing frequency that Roman was able to download. Roman, did you want to give us a little insight into your background and what you do, and how you use frequencies to help people heal?
So when I'm talking, or when I'm with people, or on the phone, or live, then I recognize first the energy and the frequency what every people has, and I can see them, like is there disharmony, or is the frequency good, or is it strong or heavy or big? And so I'm trying to get with the people in the frequency of the healer, so that they can get in himself to heal the body on his own. So I'm trying every time to get them the way to find back to himself.
Got it.
So every frequency we have is, you can see, and every frequency if the body has is amazing, because it's authentic frequency of his own. And so with this, I'm working everyone with every people.
Interesting. So if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is these frequencies already exist. They're part of our biology, part of our makeup. And what you're able to do is tap into those and help people recognize those that already exist, so they can tap into their own healing power. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to get them in the real healing code and healing frequencies, so that they are selbstermächtigt, wie heißt es schon?
So they can be self-empowered.
Self-empowered to get on his healing on his own. And I'm giving all the frequency that healing is, so they can copy and try to recognize which healing they are, which healings they need.
And
so to add to that, so it's really, and Roman has done, he does it in individual works and seminars also, when he focuses on that, where he really helps people to get the signal of these frequencies. And if we want to boil it down to this one frequency now, which is the primal human healing frequency, then he basically activates the inner healer in these people and uses that frequency in this specific case. He uses many other frequencies for all kinds of different things, because people have lots of different problems, right? It's not always just about, just a physical problem or healing or panic because of a virus or something. But in this specific case, that's what it would be. And that's how we started talking. We were like, okay, so what can we do to contribute here in this situation where people are just searching for stuff that can help them? And also everybody's so different, right? Not for everybody everything is right? And everybody has a different status. But then he immediately said it's this primal human healing frequency, which is actually something that everybody benefits from. And maybe Roman should explain what this primal healing frequency is.
Yeah, I was actually going to step back a little bit to get a little bit more, just to help myself and Bear and the community understand kind of Roman's background in terms of, I read a little bit of his bio, but it might help us all to see kind of get a better understanding, Roman, of how you see these things. I mean, do you literally visualize them in front of you? Do you see them inside, like in your consciousness? What are these frequencies like for you? I mean, do you just look around and it's like the Matrix? You just see frequencies everywhere? It'd be cool to kind of get a little bit of understanding of how this works for you. Because to me, I think frequencies, I've been tweeting about this a lot and stuff with the 5G and with things like with Sherry Edwards, who's going to be a guest, another that we're going to have back, who does amazing stuff with sound frequency and healing. And with the Royal Rife stuff we covered. I mean, it just seems like frequency is what we keep covering. And that's like the essence of life in the informational fields and with 9010 tech. So it'd be kind of help us to understand your idea of what these frequencies are, how you see them, and maybe just give us a little bit more insight in any way you can. And just so our audience knows, English is not Roman's natural language here. So while he's getting better, you may hear him speak is it German or Swiss with Philip. So that's what they're doing. But once again, maybe just give us a little bit more understanding or background on how this works for you or how you visualize this.
Okay. So I'm from child and I'm seeing all frequencies. You can imagine if you are in a room, all the first time when I'm seeing all in frequency, in energy, in colors. So to see the normal life, like that you see at the Tasse, I don't know,
the cup,
or to see something, I must focus on it. The normal thing I don't see, so like you. I must focus for normal things. The energy thing, frequencies and all the different kind of vibrations, I'm all seeing all day. So I'm completely around, because for me the Besonderheit, wie heißt
the specialty.
The specialty would be for me to see the normal things. The energy things I see all the day. So if I'm in a room, I'm seeing first all the people in energy, and I saw how what they had eat, or what they are thinking, or what they are like moving, and I don't see the normal body like you see. Then I must focus on he looks like this. So before I'm seeing all the energy, and like the room too, if there are many frequency of WLAN or is there electro or anything, it's energy, or it's coming from the earth energy or from down or wherever. So that's my seeing, and so I can see all the people from ever. If I'm seeing someone, I can read them, how the body is working. I can see the organs, how they are working, and of what type of frequencies they are getting to change something. If I'm sending them energy, then I see, okay, the heart is getting slower, or the stomach is getting in a under color. The color is changing. So, and then he say, now it's better. So I can see how the frequency really in the body change immediately, and can see the blood, how it's changed, if there's Sauerstoff drin, or
if it's oxidized, or more oxidized, less oxidized. Like he can see like any of these changes in the blood instantly.
Yeah, and I worked many years with doctor in Germany, where I was getting over the Germany and working in the by the doctors to help them to see faster what the people have, but it was much work. So,
I see. So
that's my base.
Yeah, I'm sharing with those watching your website, which is wonderful, just to give people a little bit more background. So you've been doing this since a very young age too, correct?
Yeah, the first time when I began it was 11, and it was I was on a seminar with many people, over 300, and one of the most popular people to this time, I was there, and he asked me every day 1 hour about my things, what I'm seeing in front over 300 people. And then there I begin to do this.
Wow, very interesting. Maybe then we can kind of parlay that. Bear, any thoughts on this and your insights on how these frequencies work with what Roman's seeing in terms of our body? And, he was mentioning how he can literally see colors and such with the organs, and relating that to how they're properly functioning. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas. First off, thanks for being here, you guys, and really appreciate it. And so nice to meet you for the first time, Roman. Philip, thanks for returning. You created quite a stir the last time you were here, so we're all really enthused about this. I think I'll reserve my comments because it's going to take just a little bit of explaining when we get to the testing that I did, and when you hear about the testing procedure, it will also really repeat everything that Roman's saying from in physics terminology, and I'll of course try to keep it as easy to understand as possible. But everything that Roman is sharing to me is absolutely right on, and I think what I would have to add is that there is a body of physics that verifies everything he's saying, and then also verifies how certain individuals with, let's just say, less impediments have a higher bandwidth of perception and can do exactly what Roman is able to do. And Roman right now is one of those very rare individuals on the planet that's a little bit ahead of the rest of us.
Wonderful. So Philip, maybe you want to give us a little bit of background on what happened a couple weekends with this workshop or this retreat you guys were doing, because you related it to me over Telegram, and it's really a fascinating little story of what you were able to see Roman do, and then what you guys decided to do in terms of 90-10.
Yes, sure. Yeah, so we were together here because we were giving a retreat together with my wife, actually. And then on one of the evenings, the whole coronavirus thing was already cooking like crazy. And we sat together and we were just looking at the world and thinking about the people and how most people feel unsafe and uncertain and don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, the fear doesn't help. It does the opposite, right? It weakens your immune system. It takes you out of balance. And then everybody's like, okay, what can I do? And then you hear about the bioacoustic solution, which is nice when you have the virus and then you can do something. It's still not for everybody. And it's certainly not something you can do to prevent anything. And you also shouldn't just have this frequency around all the time. And then we were talking, and then Roman said, you know what would be helpful and supportive to everybody on a preventative basis, but also certainly when you're sick, it's the primal human healing frequency. And then I got goosebumps immediately, and I don't get goosebumps a lot. It's typically just when something truly amazing is happening, where it's basically my system is signaling me, be aware, follow this. And then Roman downloaded that frequency, and since the 90-10 technology is now around, I mean, Roman can help an individual, basically offer this frequency as an energetic offer, if you will. That's how he would describe it. And then you can pick up on that, and then your system can take this on and remember and all of that. And that's how the inner healer activates. And he can do that with 300 people in a room too, right? In his seminars in Europe, hundreds of people would go, and he could do that with them there. But that doesn't help more people, right? And he would have to do it with these people. So the 90-10 technology is so absolutely amazing, because now you can put that frequency with the 90-10 tech into an object like this power capsule. And then Roman doesn't need to do anything more other than that the frequency is already there. And then someone can hold this capsule, and the same would happen then if he did it in that moment with these people, because the frequency is in here. And then we immediately tested the frequency with multiple people. And it was amazing what we were seeing on an energetic perspective. Within 60 seconds, it was in the signal was in the bloodstream. It helped the stress to release with people. I mean, lots of different things happened. We had already a feedback of someone who has late stage cancer, is taking lots of medication, is feeling terrible, doesn't have any appetite, digestive problems with pain all over. And he was one of the first to actually get this capsule with this new frequency composition. Actually, I must explain that also in a second. And within 2 days, all of his digestive problems were gone. And then Roman, certainly in his way, I could sense what was happening on an energetic level with these people, how they were feeling, and they sometimes could really sense a lot. But Roman he could literally like follow the frequency and say, now it's in the bloodstream and all of that. And yeah, then we talked about this with the 90-10 founder, and said, hey, there's this frequency, and we can do something about it. And then we move forward, basically, because the time is now. The problem with the virus is now people are concerned, and now there's something we can get out there. And I think Roman should really be the one to describe what this primal human healing frequency is. I just want to say something before I forget this, that we then, after that was done, we actually tested it on its own, and it worked super well. And then we said, okay, well, let's actually try to test it with some of the other 90-10 frequencies that they have been using together, and see how it works in the mix. And to cut a long story short, we ended up with 3 frequencies together that worked the best, and really were the optimal way to transport it. That was this primal human healing frequency, together with the 84, which is the frequencies of the 84 vital minerals and vitamins, as well as the frequencies of the 10 most famous healing waters or spring waters on Earth, like Lourdes in France. And yeah, so please ask any questions, or definitely I think Roman should be the one to explain that specific frequency.
Yeah, that would be great. Roman, do you want to kind of give us, it's really interesting too. It's like we talk about how with these, with the greater polarities that are erupting right now, where we have something like COVID that's taking over the world, the way the universe works is on the opposite flip side. We have the other polarity, right? And it's interesting now that you happen to download this what we're calling this primal healing frequency. It seems like universe always has an answer to even it out and to provide us solutions, whether that's our own consciousness doing that, or whether there's some other kind of grander entity or consciousness doing that, whatever it is, it'd be interesting to get your take on what happened, what transpired on this weekend, and how you were able to ascertain this new frequency.
The Brahman frequency of health is the frequency that is at the beginning. If we are constructing our body or getting the body from the first cells, this frequency is every time there, that nothing goes wrong. So this frequency is all over the time, getting with the body growing every time stronger and getting in a normal and harmony way. And then we learn every human learned on his own to use his own frequency and don't get so much intention of the ground of this healing code or healing frequency. And then the body use it all of his life every time, but not every time, because he has so many frequency in his body. And this frequency remind us if we are getting it on us or send, or how is it, feeling it or getting it to us, then the body remember, wow, there's my ground healing frequency, and starting his own healer in himself. So the healer that we are in ourselves is getting all the frequency up, and every cell is getting, wow, I'm now in my healing frequency, so I can heal myself, and every cell is getting healed, and change the frequency so that they can communicate it on this base of this frequency. So all cells will get in the communicating in the body, and not only in the physical cells, but and in the energetic cells too, so that the whole body in between the physical and the energetic way, all are getting with this healing frequency, and are communicating, and then the body is immediately in his base of healing. And that's amazing, because then you are getting all a new Bewusstsein, das heißt es,
consciousness.
A new consciousness to remind that you are a healer in yourself. And this consciousness is then getting so fast to replace all things that are not good for your body, and you are getting really in a deep healing in yourself.
Interesting. Yeah, and we talk about this a lot here in that there's this, seems to be like humanity's told that everything from the outside is what we need to be aware of in terms of how we fix ourselves. We're supposed to take medication that the doctor gives us, and that all the bad guys come to get us, and we're always at war with things outside. But really what you're saying, just connects exactly what we talk about all the time, is that it's inside. It's all within us. Everything is within us. And you seem to have been able to uncover this magical, or this frequency that really is going to allow us to reach our full potential as universal consciousness, has the ability to really be the master of our own inner terrain. Does this make sense to you, Bear? I know it's a little hard to hear you, Roman, so also, Philip, maybe you could also help and just reiterate what he was saying, because some people are saying it's a little hard to hear. So we apologize for that. But it's really important, I think, we get this concept across of what this primal healing frequency is.
Yeah, I'll defer to Philip. Again, when I get to explaining the testing process, it's going to go over all these ideas.
Okay, yeah, so in a nutshell, what he's saying, when the body is constructed in that moment, that primal human healing frequency is there. It's kind of like the base frequency that makes sure that the body is constructed right, and all of that. And then we have it within us. But then over time, as we live our lives and we grow up, and then certainly there are lots of external factors, right, that distract us, that bombard us, that make life a little bit difficult on certain levels, make us forget that we have that, basically. And then at some point, a lot of the people actually end up in this state where they have no clue that they can heal themselves, right? I mean, whether consciously nor subconsciously, really, it's just all I need a pill here, I need a pill there. And so this frequency, when this is available again as a signal, whether Roman does that with an individual or you have it, with this carrier mechanism here through 9010, it reminds the body that it is there, and it activates that frequency again. So it's like activating the inner healer, and it works for the body as well as the spirit. So your healing powers are activated. You remember again that you can heal yourself, that you have all frequencies available actually to do that. And it powers the immune system up. So all these things. And then he also mentioned that, you start more and more eliminating things that are actually not helpful and healing to your body.
Yeah. We're going to have a great talk next week on the nature of viruses and germ theory, and really get to the nuts and bolts of really how microbiology fits in with our own psyche, and how this really functions. So this is a great, precursor to that. Really powerful, because it's going to show really we are the empowered factors in our own health. It's us. It's up to us. And with all the toxins and things outside of us that are bombarding us, especially today in this very materialistic, very unnatural world we live in, this is more important than anything. COVID, with its dire kind of effects on society right now, is just a scratching. I mean, it's just the top layer of all the stuff we're dealing with every day. From what we talked about in the 9010 podcast with the radiation that's just been covering the planet since, from all the nuclear tests and the Fukushima and all these plants that have had these leaks, to stuff they spray, to what's in our food. I mean, we are being bombarded with toxins continually every day. And, if we were literally living on paradise on Earth, we would live forever. I truly believe that. We have the ability to not die. But our lifespan is as it is now because of the accumulation of all of these, all the stuff we're bombarded with since the day we're born. And that's not just physical either. That is psychological, dealing with our psyche, and with also our belief systems into relation to how long we're supposed to live. We're taught, the average lifespan's 65 or 70 years, and that's actually decreasing now for the first time. So this is all extremely important for people to understand, and New German medicine has done an amazing job at showing this in a much more kind of hard science perspective. But what's really cool about what Alfa Vedic's all about, and why our relationship with 9010 is exciting, is because of what Dr. Lando can do and what he has with all of his clinical experience, and how he kind of takes all these ideas to the next level in terms of helping people heal. And so what we were able to do is Philipp sent Bear one of these. Now, is this a 7G capsule or a 5? Which type of capsule is this, Philipp, that has this new frequency on it, by the way?
It's the standard capsule.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that's what I sent you as well. You can just look at the spheres real quick. If the spheres are golden, then I sent you a 7G. But in general, it will be the standard capsule, because the 7G can be too strong for some in the beginning from the quantum energy. It looks silver, huh? Does it?
Yeah.
So that's a regular, which has a certain amount of quantum energy power, which you can actually also reduce by removing a sphere or two and then put it back in. But that seems to work the best for most people, and then other people that want even more quantum energy they at some point, once they get used to it, they can basically upgrade to more spheres. But to get the frequency into the system, there's no 7G or so needed. It's absolutely this works perfectly.
Yeah. And for those that are new to 9010, like I said, we have another podcast that goes deeper into it. I did an unboxing when I first got the power capsule, which is the 5, and it was really powerful for me. It took me a while to kind of get used to it. Everybody has a different effect. A number of people in our community now have the power capsules and the cards and the water bottles or the water containers, and we're all getting profound effects from it. It's really cool to see that our community embrace it, and overall extremely positive benefits. For me personally, I've shared this many times in our Telegram group. For those interested in joining in our community and learning more about 9010 and Carbon 60 and all the products that we make on our farm, you can join our Telegram group at t.me/Alfa Vedic. We're getting great testimonials in from other folks in our community that are using this, and overall extremely positive for me. It seems like my family life, it just seems to be kind of elevated to a happier place. Not that we weren't happy before, but it just seems like there's more calm. And it's kind of funny, I received this a couple weeks before the whole COVID explosion, and it couldn't be better timing. There's no fear. There just seems to be a great amount of more love in the air, if that makes any sense, in the family dynamic. I only have one so far. I didn't get a family pack, so we kind of pass this around when people feel like they need it, and they'll wear it. My kids even put it on my dog, our cat, and my chickens. It's funny, they kind of looked. It was interesting. I put it towards my chickens, and they all just stopped. I have 6 chickens. They all stopped at the same time and just looked at it. And we're very much could sense probably the energy. I don't know. It was really trippy. So I'm still always playing around with it. Eventually, I do want to get a cube. We explained in the previous podcast what the cube does. The cube is actually the original invention by the founder that actually has a torus field. So theoretically, the torus field of the quantum energy is within that. And then that can charge anything within it, and also burn frequencies from any kind of matter into other matter. Out there stuff, really out there. I know it stretches the imagination and concepts of what reality is, but interacting with it has made me a believer. And one thing I noticed is it's really, and something we've talked about a lot, Bear and I talk about all the time, is the need for new analog technologies that interface with consciousness. Because, if you read the more mystical books and stuff, that's what they all talk about back in the day, whether that be Lemuria or Atlantis or whatever, these ancient civilizations. They had this analog technology that interfaced with consciousness. And it's interesting with this power capsule, I feel like I can feel it more when I put my intention into it. And people may call that placebo or whatever, but I really do. And it's really interesting how you can feel the effects of it when you engage with it. So that being said, Dr. Lando, you were sent this updated frequency capsule, and maybe give us a little insight into how you're able to test it and what were your findings. And you're muted right now, just so you know. Barry, you're muted.
What's wrong? Aren't you guys lip readers out there?
Yeah, on iTunes, that can be a little challenge, but
Roman probably understood everything you said.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm also, my internet's going in and out there, the signal, because I live remote, so I'm on a satellite. So I don't know, lately it's been really buggy, so I hope you can hear me okay. It's going to be a bit of a challenge to go through this because the technology and the process that I use is a little involved. So it's necessary to get just a few concepts across so that you can have a basic understanding of how we go about this. And first off, I want to let everyone know that Philip sent me this and said, hey, will you test it and tell us on the air what your findings were? So I thought, well, that's interesting. He's really sticking his neck out here because, what if my findings aren't that positive or something? So he must really believe in this. But I already had a belief system in it because I had one of the earlier capsules, and I could, definitely feel, effects from it. So I was eager to do it. Okay, here we go. The technology I use is a dual impedance antenna that you have to understand. Well, let me just show you I'll just kind of briefly show you a dual impedance antenna that has the ability. Here's two antennas, and now this is not plugged in with any electronics or computer interface, and that's important because if it was, then it would interfere with its ability to tune into universal frequencies with the dirty energy overlay. So that's the problem with a lot of our technologies now. They not only don't allow you to interface with nature in its authentic form, but they also overlay toxic things on top of it. So this dual impedance antenna, to understand it, a strand of DNA is also, to a dual impedance process, and based on the codons in between, like the ladders of the rung, if you've ever seen pictures of DNA, that will allow that strand of DNA to tune into certain bandwidth, certain frequencies. That's what makes us who we are, as far as our ability to perceive, first of all, the way collective humanity perceives as compared to other animal forms, and also our little idiosyncrasies, one from the other, where we see things a little bit differently and create our world a little bit differently. So this is the original, based on the original technology. Now this was developed by an Austrian physicist by the name of Ernst Lecker. And Ernst Lecker was an engineer as well. And it was originally developed to help work within the field of engineering. So they would use this, and they still do, by the way, to read the energy lines in the place where a building site, and to understand how to construct things that would withstand heavy loads, bridges, and large buildings and such. So these are real scientific engineers and people that were behind this. Now excuse me, after that, it was adapted to medicine by a French physician and scientist. And he was given he adapted it to medicine, and he was given the highest award in France for his work, highest award, for scientific achievement. So there's compared to all the doctors in the world, kind of a minority of us, but still a growing number of us that are tapped into this community and use this for medicine. Now, to really understand this, Walter Russell, another great mind of our times, really laid out a schematic of how we're not only an electrical universe, but how our role in the universe with our thoughts, our individual consciousness, contribute to what we think of as our physical reality, which isn't physical at all. So nature, for instance, there's a universal pattern. I like to use the word universal because then I don't step on any religious or different kind of belief systems. But let's just all agree that there seems to be an intelligence in the universe. And so this universal intelligence created a canvas for us all to create on. And so we can also call that nature. So when you go in nature and things seem to make you feel pretty good, and if it's untampered with, things seem to work pretty well, well, that's because things are following these universal principles. Now, as this universal consciousness created this canvas, this reality, basically through electrical waveforms, those electrical waveforms, you know, an engineer would, you know, if you see them in a textbook, look like a little up and down. But when you think of them three-dimensionally, they're in fact spherical spirals, and they go in different directions. And each one of these segments of a spiral, which you would look at it in a textbook as one single up and down of a waveform, that represents a sphere. Now that sphere has 18 dimensions, and Walter Russell goes to great length as far as explaining what those dimensions mean. Now, coincidentally, Ernst Lechter, when he created this dual impedance antenna, and by the way, people like Tesla created other antenna devices that were capable of pulling these energies straight out of the atmosphere to create energy that we should all be on now without any dirty energy or any need to pay for it. But there's 18 incremental sections on this, but then within each of the 18 segments, there's a lot of other increments. Now, within engineering and medicine, we know that when you set the antenna to any one of these numerical values, it's going to literally broadcast that particular frequency for that dimension. Now, to help you understand, if, for instance, if I have two C-sharp tuning forks, and I put one on the other side of the room and I'm holding the other and I activate it, that one on the other side of the room, because it's calibrated in the same frequency range of C-sharp, it's going to resonate even though nobody activated it. So the dual impedance antenna, because we know what each one of these increments medically means to our physiology, our psyche, our other levels of our being, when we set it there, it's literally broadcasting a frequency that's going to bounce back from a body that we're testing, and then that's going to tell us if their being is functional or not. And if it's not functional, what it means is that that part of their reality has asymmetries rather than nice, perfect spheres the way nature creates. So with this, we have a number of options. It's possible sometimes to set it and broadcast frequencies and then retest, and then sometimes that actually brings symmetry back to that part of them. Now, depending, and this will be important in the testing when I get to that, when there's deeply seated that have gone densified or crystallized all the way into the physical structure in certain ways, then sometimes, like myself, what I'll do is
hey,
take
Barry,
that frequency.
Barry, broke up real quick. Deeply seated what? Sorry, we lost you there for a second on an important word.
Okay.
Deeply seated.
Am I back here?
Yeah. We didn't hear that one word you said.
So when these asymmetries become more deeply crystallized, in other words, into more of the dense part of our physical structure, into our musculoskeletal system, our organ systems, different parts of our psyche, but just simply broadcasting a frequency won't do it. But then in that case, what I do is I use the frequency, and I won't go into the whole technology, but that allows me to open up a whole file within the body and mode off of that. And usually it takes me about 10 or 20 resets to bring symmetry back. And those resets, and it's important that you do this sequentially, just like somebody doing a building. You can't, build one part, before the other. It has to make sense. So it might involve acupuncture, osteopathy, homeopathy, spagyric, remedies, isopathics, where you're actually looking at the bowtrain and putting certain microbial seeds in there to balance out that level. It might require emotional clearing. But after you do those number of resets, then you retest, and then usually things are reset, but not just reset, but stay that way. It's not just a quick fix. So when I got to the testing part, I not only used this for the initial scan, but then I also, second part, interfaced it with this other technology that's based on clinical kinesiology. Now, I was in the clinical kinesiology involves some muscle testing. Now, clinical kinesiology was a very sophisticated neurological-based muscle testing, and I was in the original circles that developed kinesiology. And I don't have any problem with a lot of muscle testing that is very popular out there, but it's my job as a physician to keep a neurological model, because when people come to me, they aren't trusting my psychic abilities, but they are trusting that I'm a physician and I'm going to take extra measures to be real grounded and have something to, you know, validate that things are actually working. All right. So when we're muscle testing, we have many refinements that allow us to differentiate between, you know, by the technique, to make sure that you're isolating either muscle meridians or specific neurological muscle networks, or else be able to distinguish between gamma 1 and gamma 2 fibers, which means are you eliciting information from the upper motor neurons or from the spinal motor, you know, segments coming out of the spinal nerves. And if you don't do that, then you can get very spurious results and inconsistencies. So it's important that you do that. So I just wanted to put that out so you know when we get to the muscle testing, it's a very neurological based way of getting biofeedback in order to you know, back up what we're getting here. When we're treating bodies, I also do a very thorough physical exam that's integrative with Chinese medicine, you know, conventional Western medicine, physical exam, neurological exam, osteopathic, and so forth. And then also we do labs, because we really like to triangulate from a lot of different directions, and that way you get a much clearer picture. So I just want to lay all that out so that you know that we're kind of sticklers for the way we measure things. And in this situation, I was able to have 2 test subjects and use the clinical kinesiology approach secondary to the Lecker antenna, which gets a very accurate measurement of the waveforms that create every bit of form that we think is form, but is actually, you know, consciousness. And I appreciate, Roman, that, you know, the way you see things, because we all think that because we see something with our eyes or we hear something that, oh, I can validate that that's real. Well, the thing that creates everything, again, are waveforms that are projections of our own consciousness. And our own consciousness, of course, we have our own individual canvas that we get to impose on, you know, the larger universal canvas, you know, so that we get to learn how things really work and how to, you know, more refine our thinking and get out of the toxic emotion, level. And so anyway, when you think of the senses, they are a projection, another projection or a fabrication within the simulation to begin with. So in other words, you can't believe your lying eyes, because you're going to see, you know, your own projections basically. And so the only way to really, you know, get authentic feedback is to do what Roman's doing. Or for someone like myself that doesn't have that capacity, then I have to rely on technology. And, you know, so that's what we're doing. So I had 2 test subjects, and one is an acupuncture student, and the other is a very experienced osteopathic practitioner. And so they graciously donated themselves. Now, I could only do so much testing, because in order to test into more involved areas, it requires that you make changes first. Then you go to the next level, and it's sequential that way. But what I was able to do, we get some very substantial feedback. all right? And we went through a lot of frequencies that mean a lot of different things. All I'm going to mention with a very brief explanation is the frequencies that tested positive. In other words, the areas that these two individuals might need some assistance with, because if I went through the whole process, it would take way too long, and I've probably taken too long already. All right, so here's, let's go ahead, start with this one. So the first frequency that tested positive was, on the antenna, I'm going to set this to 12. And that is going to tell me if this individual is receiving energy from above. In Chinese medicine, we have a saying that, your feet have to be in the ground and your head in the clouds, because you need to have that to be a perfect balance between heaven and earth. And then that balance is what creates, harmony and good things and positive things and good health. So 12 is that frequency. So this person had a block in that area. Another thing I might mention, the next individual was open there, but had a block in a frequency of 8, which had to do with his ability to receive energies from the earth. And he was blocked there. So those two create a pole. In waveform mechanics, we call that, I don't have anything else, so I'm holding up a tongue depressor here. Think of this as a north and a south pole. Now, remember, we told you that every segment of a waveform was a sphere. Imagine you have a basketball, and you have inside of it, instead of air, you have something inside of it, a structure that's making it round. And so to hold it up this way, you have this, a north and south pole that keeps it propped up this way. Now, to create a spherical shape, you also need an east-west. So that's a different pole. And now, within our technology, we also have to test another east-west pole that's going in this direction, and that creates what we think of as three-dimensionality, which allows the waveform to project what we think of as form that we perceive as material in the 3D. So we're talking right now about the north-south pole. I wasn't able to get into east-west poles because that's a more advanced level that would require more things. Now, I'd like to do more of that in the future with this, but it would take a period of time, not just in a single day, to create changes and then go back and test this. Now, the east-west pole, the horizontal plane, that's going to tell us if we have a shift of asymmetry in one direction or the other, or front and back. And medically, we know exactly what that means. It tells us if there's hormonal imbalances, if there's emotional imbalances, if there's organic problems, if there's structural problems. So we can get pretty specific as far as what that's telling us. I also have another medical laboratory assay that I do that allows us to see chemicals in terms of electricity, and it tells us of these same forces and gives us the exact information of this. So this stuff is real, and there's ways to back it up many different ways. Okay, so this person had an imbalance in the 12, receiving the cosmic energies. And now the next thing is every healthy cell has an energy field that can be measured at 2.5. And so that's, if you have a good 2.5 reading, then you have a pretty resilient individual. So what I do, though, is I take the 2.5 and I test the regulating centers, which some people would call chakras, but these are, neurological processing centers. So you have, the 7 centers. Now, this person had a block in the throat and also the solar plexus, all right? And then we went to frequency 2.1 that we recognize allows us to get into the lymphatic system. Lymphatics is much more than just a system of plumbing. It has a special connection energetically. I'll just leave it at there. So it's working on some very profound levels as well as providing plumbing for the body. There's 6 different test points, 3 on each side. This person was fine, all of them open on the right side. The left side, all 3 were blocked. And then remember we talked about the north and south, the 8 from the ground and the 12 from above. Now, if we do a 15.3 right at the equator of a person's, waveforms, because there's like these 2 waves that are interchanging. What Mike talked about is a torus, which is a common term in free energy circles. It's actually in waveform mechanics, it's dual opposing waveforms that meet in the equator, and then one becomes the other, and it just becomes this electrical hydraulic pump where one negates the other every single moment to create the next frame of our experience. And it really is a movie, literally, if you understand how that works. Okay, so the 15.3 allows us to understand, is the person processing, the 2 energies? And one is the ability to take informational fields into centripetal spirals and compact them into what we would think of as dense material form, and then simultaneously disperse those resources to where they're needed. So the 15.3 tells us how the person's managing the resources and also compacting them in, for their own experience and creating their own reality. So that was blocked in this person. There's an imbalance there. And I'll say one more and then I'll open it up, because I know this gets kind of out there and confusing, but it's the only way I can think of to just tell us what we in fact did. Okay, so 5.7 is the next one that came up positive, and that's the part of the cycle that tells us how this person is taking informational fields that come from the universal, and then compacting them, stratifying them until they come down into the vibrations that we then experience as our reality. And how is that person able to do that? So they had a problem there. Okay, so now doing this analysis again and having the person wear this on their body, and I had them do it right over their heart area here. So that's a very important area.
Bear, quick
yeah,
question.
Sorry, go ahead.
How long had the person held it before you then tested it again? Was that instantly, or did you give it like 10, 15 minutes, or?
I gave it maybe about, say 5+ minutes. And now when we're finished with the results, my immediate question is, okay, what happens when a person wears this longer versus just having it on their body for a few minutes? So all those things are obvious questions that a clinician is going to think of. And okay, so I'll just give you the results of the person having it just for a few minutes. So remember the 12, which has to do with the block here, it had a positive effect and opened that up so that the person was able to receive from that level of energy better.
Wow.
So you could say that happened like instantly.
Wow.
Right.
And Bear, real quick again, what's the 12 relate to? Just like my life again? What does that again do?
Well, 12, remember the North and South Pole, one end of the pole that represents the 12, which is your ability to receive cosmic energy.
Okay.
The 8 is receiving Earth energy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other physicists that I won't talk about now that have done other experiments that show how humans have the unique ability to take in both of those energies and to transmute them and themselves in order to reach different levels of consciousness, we'll say. Of course, we aren't given an owner's manual when we come into this, and most of us don't know how to do it. So we tend to do a lot of go-arounds on the wheel, so to speak, until we get it. But I think we're at a point planetarily, and I think this whole COVID thing is one of the wake-ups that's giving people a pause for reset, so that we start understanding that maybe what we've been doing isn't working. And a lot of what I'm not at all anxious about what's going on these days, because what I see out there more than anything is more and more people with light bulbs coming on. So this is the big wake-up call, and it's a wonderful time. So don't buy into all the other stuff. Okay, enough on that. So the 12 opened up instantly. The crown, did I mention the 6th center, the pineal center, was blocked in this individual? I might have skipped that. I forget. And the throat center, I said the throat and the solar plexus, the crown, not the pineal, the crown, actually, the 7th seal, that one was blocked. Okay, so that opened up. So
wow, that's huge.
That kind of, now that coincides, and I would kind of expect that, because you know the number 12 frequency that opened that up, that kind of coincides with what the crown chakra does in the first place. Okay, now the throat and the solar plexus didn't open up. Now, Philip, my first question is, I wonder what would happen if I had this person wear it all day and then come back tomorrow. So I'd like to see that. In fact, I probably have these guys do that. The other thing is that doesn't mean it doesn't work either, because one thing you have to understand, and Roman, please tell me your thoughts if you have different thoughts. This is just my opinion based on working on a lot of bodies for a lot of years. You can do a lot of good things, but you can only take a person to where they're ready to go. In other words, you know, you can't fix somebody from the outside. And as Roman, I agree wholeheartedly, he talks about the innate healing ability. And what I think I hear Roman saying is that he's helping people get in touch with that. So you can't, no matter what, I don't think you can just take anybody and fix everything. But like in this individual, okay, they might have needed to wear this longer, or maybe they need to do other things on different levels in order to go to that level they're being, you know, I don't know. So with more clinical work, I could,
Also,
the way I figured it out, I could give you more information.
Also, real quick, what I was saying about earlier with this is how you got to do a little bit of work with it. Like that's what I've noticed, is that you actually, by putting your intentions in and doing things with it, you feel it kind of give you a feedback. So maybe that's another aspect to it, whether that be meditating or whatever, but maybe there requires a little bit of work. I don't personally believe there's anything in the universe that just is the fix all that you just get, and you have to put the work in to change your life, and that's as above so below kind of concept, right? So maybe there needs to be some intention and all that is put into it that will then allow you to release. I don't know.
The important thing is
that
humans that want to change their life, then they can work with it very easily. Or they are sure that they know about that they are not only humans that living in a normal way, that they are more than human, that they are really energy and many things of different kinds of frequencies. And then they will, if they are understanding that they are very great what they are, then they can get and work with it easily, because then the frequency is getting in and the body is getting like, wow, there is a frequency that I can remember my healing code, so my healing frequencies are getting up, and then it's getting to work. And that's very amazing, because many people don't want to heal. Many people love not to be healed, and then if they're taking it, they say, whoa, now I must to get in the healing, and then they say, okay, that I don't want. And it's really nice, because many people are trained to not heal, because we learned to not be healing, because it's not good to be every time complete healed.
Yes. What you're saying is that
Brilliantly put.
people have been conditioned in a certain way to think, and belief systems are everything. So people don't want to believe this because that's how they've been conditioned. So then they won't heal. But if they can understand that we're energy, we're consciousness, that we're empowered, then the whole world will open up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a physician, you know, even people that seek an integrative specialist, as I was, they still harbor an expectation that they're going to be given something that's going to fix them, or get a modality or treatment that's going to fix them. And sometimes there's disappointment when you tell them, well, you know, it's, I can facilitate the journey, but it might take some change on your part as well. Okay, so thank you, Roman. That was perfect. Now the next one I'll talk about is I think I talked about the 15.3, where that is a frequency that tells us how the body is not only compressing data to create form, but then also dispersing the resources in order to you know, service all the areas of our being that need them, and also allows us to get rid of the surplus, which if that's not happening, then that's what we later call toxicity, you know, that those kinds of accumulations. So this person had the block on that level, and this opened that up. It actually integrated that. That doesn't surprise me either, because remember, this person was open and the earth energies closed here. Now you open this up, the crown chakra also opens up, and now you have an exchange of energy above and below, you know, going back in this hydraulic interchange system. So that doesn't have to happen. There could still be an imbalance at that level. However, it did, you know, as far as that test seemed to balance things out. Okay, so let's just, and the 5.7, the ability to compress energy, that was just a separate measurement. That was positive, and it now, and those in waveform mechanics represents the centripetal part of the wave, not the centrifugal unwinding part. And so that balanced that out too. The other one that it didn't have an effect on were the lymphatics, the three lymphatic test areas on the left side of the body. So again, if I'm treating that person the way I know how, that's not disturbing to me. I just open up files, sequentially mode through whatever treatment points in order to take care of that. And to go there, I'm going to have to, again, take care of the horizontal plane asymmetries, those shifts, you know, that skew the sphere in an oblation way. You know, the north-south is the prolation. And so, you know, then I do whatever, you know, I'd have to do that. Would wearing this for a few more hours, a few more days, fix that too? I want to know about that. Okay, so that was test subject number 1. There's a lot more to it than that. Also, when I did the retest, when they have the capsule on them, I set it up so I was using the antenna, and the antenna, well, I won't show you, but it attaches to a cord, and then I had that interfacing with the acupuncture system, so that we were getting, and then using the clinical kinesiology along with the antenna by way of the meridian system, because it's a very accurate way to get another level of depth. So I have those interfacing, kind of cross-checking each other. So everything you know, heard as far as the post-tests were based on those checks and balances, and those are the results. So what I would say as a clinician is, wow, this does some pretty cool stuff. And the things that didn't change makes perfect sense for all the reasons we discussed. And it's time for, you know, me as a clinician to, you know, go to work, maybe do some other things. or maybe the patient themselves go to work at the same time and take care of business on their end. Okay. So I'll go into number 2, but any comments or questions so far? I'm sorry if that gets drawn out and kind of tedious, but it actually is a lot more technical than how I'm explaining. It's just, if you don't have the language, it's a different terminology.
Yeah, so far from comments and stuff, it's just kind of mind blown. People just really enjoying it. This is all very new information for most. So, absolutely fascinating. Keep going. So yeah, everybody's just enjoying these findings that you found.
Okay.
Yeah, I find it fascinating.
And then this one will go ahead. Sorry, Philip.
No, I'm just saying, like, I find it fascinating too, because so far 9010, products have been tested a whole lot with bioresonance machines, with dark field microscopy and all of that. But this system is very interesting, and it's a lot of information, of course, to take in, but it's I think it was indeed necessary so you can explain what you're actually doing, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, and please just chime in with questions and things again, because I know it gets confusing, with new terminologies. And I'm not even using the technical terminologies. I'm just trying to, and it basically it gets down to numbers. And what we're, if we're talking about this spherical spirals, the actual energy forms coming from universal consciousness and then our own individual consciousness that allows us to play in our own little space. Nature follows a code, and that code has been discovered by many people. We call it the Fibonacci sequence, the golden mean. And that code, when it's followed, creates, just the beauty of nature. When we learn how to harness our thoughts consciously and to, get to this realization that the universe is a benevolent place and there's nothing to be afraid of except our own creations, and when we, become more informed on those levels, then our own thought forms will start conforming more to the universal code, that Fibonacci sequence. And then we'll be creating those perfect spheres that, create the vibrations that register on our senses. And when that day comes, which I think we're just like that far from critical mass. We have a tendency to look at all the chaos in the world without realizing instead that more people are waking up, and you need a fraction of humanity to wake up, and then you hit a point of critical mass, and it may only be a percentage of humanity, a small percentage, but it's enough to shift the entire thing. So don't look at the chaos, understand how it works. And what, we're all trying to do, those of us that are truth seekers, is to really be part of the solution and not add to the chaos. So, I keep my ear to the ground just so I know when to get my money out of the bank in the nick of time. On the other hand, I don't dwell on it because it's all fake. If I look out my window at the surrounding forest and my farm outside there, that's real. That's tangible. So I think what we're doing now is, getting back to what's real. So let's go to test subject number 2. And this will be a lot quicker because we're kind of discussed the first one, put out enough concepts. Okay, where the heck? Okay, so this person, as I said, was had a positive number 8, which is receiving the earth frequencies, and open on top, the 12 frequency. So just kind of blocked receiving energies from the earth. You can't create on this realm unless your feet are in the ground, you know, and then our job, we're conduits between heaven and earth. We're supposed to bring the light in to create beauty on this plane, but you got to be here at the same time in order to do it. And so a little bit of a challenge doing that for this individual, at least on that energy center. And then the 15.3, which represents the ability to compress data and then also disperse in order to have, you know, everything get to where it needs and not have accumulated toxicity. That wasn't working either. We had the 7.8. The other person had a 5.7, which is their ability to compress data. This person was the opposite. It was, you know, blocked in their ability to take that compressed data and then get rid of what they don't need, and then also distribute efficiently what they do need to the parts of their being that need that. Okay, so far? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we're all muted. So, real quick.
Probably
On
probably
the
all asleep.
no. On the centrifugal versus centripetal or whatever, do you find, you know, the idea of the 5.7 versus whatever, where you're taking in or releasing? Do you find that that's different versus masculine versus feminine?
Well, yeah, that's what Asian medicine, we call it yin and yang. Yin is centripetal. Exactly. It's taking the energies and compacting it into form. You know, women, you know, create form in the womb. And, you know, men, on the other hand, take form and disperse it. If you have female polarity, the yin that's acting unilaterally, you're going to have a compression of data that's going to actually, in the physical body, you know, myself to my doctor thinking, it's going to create accumulations and sclerodermas and thickening of tissues, and, you know, because you don't have the other force keeping it in check. You know, and on the other hand, if the yang is working unilaterally, you know, you're going to be operating completely on the mental plane and nothing really behind it to create good form. It's like an architect without a contractor to build the house for you. So, you know, you need an equal balance of both of them. And okay, where were we? So go ahead, Philip.
A quick thing, because we didn't really talk about that beforehand, but I need to say that at 45, Roman and I need to kind of fade off the live stream, because there's a webinar that is scheduled that Roman is leading, and I'll attend that as well for a little while. So maybe a couple minutes over or something. I just want to let you know, time check wise.
This will take 2 minutes. We tested positive in 7.8. That's what I was just describing as far as the ability to disperse resources. I'll skip another one that brings into another whole discussion. And then the 2.5 that we tested, you know, on the chakras, they had the pineal in this one and also the throat center, both closed. So here's your results. Every one of those that I mentioned all tested open and balanced with a few minutes of wearing this. There is only one that didn't respond, and that's the one I didn't talk about just then. It's a frequency of 17.6, and I'll leave that explanation for another time. So that one had even more shift than the first one. So if I'm assessing this, I don't know anything about it, I'd say, this is interesting. This is, you know, creating some positive changes, and I'd want to know more about it. Okay, so I'll leave it at there, and then I'd rather hear your feedback or just anything else you'd like to share with us today.
Yeah, Philip, why don't we get into you know, what you're telling me in terms of what the plan is for this new you know, this new capsule frequency. I know you guys want to try to get this out there. I know we don't have much time left, so you know, you're talking about trying to get this out into the health field with you know, your day-to-day practitioner, nurses, doctors, etc. You guys have some different plans to try to help get as many people, get this in the hands of as many people as possible.
Yeah. So first of all, so 9010 is working day and night right now to actually get it all produced and done. So, and your listeners are really among the first to hear about it. And there's already a pre-sale happening, I think, as of April 6th, roughly, give or take. These new capsules will be ready to be shipped to people that order them. They can order them already now. You'll probably have the link down below. It's 9010us.com where you can find that. I don't know if we have any German, Austrian, or Swiss listeners here. We may not, but if there is one or two, or on Roman's side, Roman will offer that too. It's actually already available there as well for pre-sale. Yes, there's actually here in the US, that is also, and big thanks here to the 9010 founder. It's a lot right now. There's so much going on, and they're really doing everything they can to make this available to the people. And so he had this great idea that we can support nurses and doctors in the US that are involved, with the current situation and are just working so hard. So everybody, we're still figuring out the fine tuning of this and how exactly this will work. But the concept is if someone orders a family pack of 4 power capsules, regular power capsules, or the so-called HEAL power capsules, and they know a nurse or doctor, then they can get one of the HEAL capsules for free. And all they need to do is, I guess, they need to send us a name and a picture of that nurse or doctor, and we'll just ship that out for free. That was the idea. And again, people can start ordering now, the whole concept, and then also the shipping will start at some point, April 6th. Disclaimer, of course, that we don't know currently how transportation and everything will continue with all these lockdowns. That's just something that we can't really impact. But if everything continues, somewhat normal, then that is the timeline for that.
Okay. Very good. I just dropped the link in the chat here. We'll have it in the show notes, of course, as well. We do have some German-speaking people on the chat here, and would try to say their question, but don't really know how to even pronounce it. One of them is Flower27's asking, just wants to make sure, was wondering if you have a link to this webinar. Is this a public webinar that you guys are jumping on? Is this a private webinar that you just mentioned? I know people are obviously interested to know more and hear more from Roman especially.
Yeah, this specific one is actually one in German, and that's Roman's webinar that can be booked. It's not a free webinar. It's a paid webinar, and I think it's just a half hour. And then towards the end, Roman and I are going to share some of the news we just shared as well. Okay.
I will go ahead and drop Roman's website link to in the chat here, so that anybody interested can access that. And if you speak German, go to it. So I just dropped that in. And of course, that'll be in the show notes for anybody listening to the podcast. Please go to his website. It's wonderful to get more information. Roman, I know you got to get going here soon. Sorry, maybe we need to have you come back, and we'll make sure your audio is a little louder next time. We'll get that all dialed for everybody, because we really want to hear more from you. Any parting words for our audience?
The last word, everyone's gone.
You just broke up there for a second, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, can you guys hear me okay? I was just saying, Roman, any parting words for our audience? And because I know you got to get going, and we definitely want to have you back on and just have a whole podcast to hear about your life story and all the work you do. But any parting words for our audience, I know you need to get going.
Ich soll jetzt einfach noch ein paar Worte sagen dazu.
Ja, einfach nur noch mal irgendwas noch jetzt den Leuten mit auf den Weg geben kannst. Vielleicht irgendwas jetzt für die Krise noch, irgendwie, dass sie irgendwie ruhig bleiben. Irgendwas, was als final word sozusagen.
Okay, good. So important is that we remember all that we are humans that can do anything. So because we are really creator that can have all frequency in us and really are big and great. And if you remember your own, that you are a creator and you are a human that be getting in a large system on your own, then you can imagine that you are really getting in all bad situation back in yourself and getting it in a good situation. And remember every time that you are the person that decides what your life is, and you decide how to live and how you are using your own frequencies.
Yes, yes. Very important. As we've kind of hit that home run today, is you are the empowered actor in your own movie. As Dr. Lando was saying, the way the reality unfolds, we are literally all the heroes in our own movie. And that's why we love watching movies. And that's why, it goes all the way back to Greek, narrative styles of the hero's journey, and why we connect with that, because that's literally how our consciousness works in this reality, is we are all on our own hero's journey. That's why when we dream, we are literally in a movie. So anyways, very, very powerful words, Roman. Once again, we want to get you back on. We'll get your audio a little louder next time and dive deeper. So I know you guys got to get going. Philip and Roman, thanks so much for joining us today. Bear and I might just stay on for another 10 minutes and answer some questions that Bear can answer. We've got a couple in here in terms of his findings. Philip, any parting words for the community? I think you kind of nailed it on the head in terms of what you're planning to do with selling this. So where can people find you? Maybe share information about the Telegram or anything like that as you guys leave.
Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be awesome if you maybe share the link in the video description or something of the Telegram group. It's a 9010 user group, so it's really not run by 9010. It's really just people sharing, learning, and it's just absolutely amazing and fascinating. So if you want to learn more about it, you're welcome to join. And just in general, I think, for this time right now, I would really agree with what Bear said and what Roman said. Just don't get sucked into all this stuff that's happening on the outside there. It's really time to, maybe use the additional time you have to focus on within, really explore, find out what you find in there, be present in your body, and don't get into fear. And if you sense fear, and I know this from the past, and you just feel you just can't get rid of it, just try to watch it. And then at some point, if you recognize it'll go away, but don't get sucked into fear at all. This is really the opposite, right? It's the scissor effect we have. Negative things are happening, or they supposedly negative things, but the really positive things are happening at the same time. And we can choose what we focus on. We can choose and decide how we live our lives. And so just expand, feel yourself, and be positive, and just see what you can make out of each situation that arises.
Wonderful. Pathoflove.net. That's path-of-love-net. I just put it on the link. We'll put that in the show notes as well. It's in the chat. That is your guys' website for the retreats and stuff you do related to all of that. So, hey guys, thanks so much. I know you guys need to go. So thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. This is really exciting times. And we look forward to getting the word out and testing more and really enjoying this new technology and everything you guys are bringing to the world.
Thanks for having us. And you guys have a great rest of the day. And
yeah, you too. Enjoy the webinar. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right, bye everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
It was very nice. Thank you. It was very great. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. We really appreciate you and everything that you do. You're a treasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Roman.
So, wow, that was interesting findings you have there, Bear. Kalmer had a quick question. He was just wondering, I gotta go find it in the chat here, how this relates to basically the chakras and, he says, as it targets our natural healing capabilities, how is that represented in the chakras when you tested? So you were kind of saying the chakras relate to these numbers on the dual impedance. Is that right?
Yeah, and again, these are numbers that were created at the institutes in Paris that integrated the use of this instrument for medical, whereas prior it was used for engineering, and they were able to do that because they understood that the engineers had to work with the natural forces of nature also in order to build sound structures. And therefore, just like I use certain labs that were originally developed for soil science, I use the same labs for people's bodies in bioterrain medicine because the same principles are consistent. So in a frequency level, these doctors and scientists had adapted it to the use of medicine. They were able to confirm the frequencies that related to different parts of the human anatomy and human subtle anatomy. That old saying, as above, so below. If it exists in nature, then we're holograms of the natural order and everything within our body, universes within universes. So to answer more directly, the particular calibration of 2.5, when we direct it at these different centers. Now, I don't, use the Eastern terminology chakras. I use that just because everybody, more people are familiar with that. But for us, they're more endocrine regulatory centers, and they have very critical neurological components. So when we're dealing with those centers, we understand that there's different dimensions in each one of those centers. And we don't just do simple readings. And I was just trying to get through this quickly, but we also test the different dimensions of every single one of those centers, whether we're more on the less compressed data, which is what we would call the subtle body, or maybe you might even call it chakras, or if we're talking about, more the neurological interface or the actual dense glandular material itself, or more the functional ramifications of all that. There's ways to differentiate with all that. So when we're testing each one of those centers, we either get a positive test, which means that's regulating fine, or not. Now, the other thing I don't think I mentioned is with these regulating centers, you don't just say, oh, it's closed, I have to open it. I hear that all the time in healing work, different kinds of healing work, where people say, oh, this chakra is closed. Well, the fact is those things open and close all day long. And sometimes they're appropriately closed. And if you use techniques to force them open or create a change that's, not conducive to what the body's actually trying to regulate in the first place, it's not a great idea. So we have a way of testing to also see, is it a good idea to work on this, or is it just fine and knows what it's doing? Did I at all answer the question in any of that?
Yeah, I think so. This is all mind-opening for me, I tell you that. So I think we're learning a lot today, and I think this could definitely spout off into a number of alpha casts going deeper into this. I know we've talked about doing that. And this will kind of feed nicely into next week's topic, where we'll go deeper into germ theory, what viruses actually are. Essentially going to let you kind of take the reins on that, and I'm just going to ask questions that a lot of people have, I think, because it gets really confusing with all the indoctrination we've had from the idea that vaccines are how they work, to how people get sick, and the idea of contagion and all that. I think it's a hot topic, but it all relates to what we're talking about today. And so the greater understanding of how all these systems work within us is so important. So, but in terms of that question, yeah, Kay Elmer, if you're still in there, let us know if that was kind of got to where you were looking for. And once again, these are topics that you just can't cover in a couple hours, right? I mean, Barry, you've been studying this for decades, so it's definitely something that we're just going to keep covering and keep doing podcasts on, and trying to, it's also, you're in a constant, just like any real scientific method. You're day to day discovering new things and still tinkering and uncovering this stuff.
Yeah, the moment you think you got it wired is the moment you don't. So yeah, I feel like at this point in my life, I'm just at the point where I can really start learning. Mike, you mentioned New German medicine, and that's another whole discussion that, way too much to get into now, but that's another level of reality. Who's that, Teo?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another new reality, another reality that has to do with our biological instinctual programming that are from our, let's just say, lower mammalian and reptilian evolution. And I got to be careful when I say that. I'm not suggesting a Darwinian type evolution, because that was another fabrication of the Royal Society to keep us in darkness. But it is a fact that the human biology has all of the lower animal forms on the earth kind of programmed in, and our job is to, and we're the only ones that have the ability to self-realize and do that, is to raise the frequency of everything and rise above it. Or we can, choose to sink down and operate on the lower instinctual animal form. So if you look at a embryological unfolding of a newborn, a fetus, what you're going to see is it go through all those stages that are, reptilian, mammalian, and so forth. Now, along with that are the instinctual programmings of those forms. Now, the human biology is unique in that it does things on our behalf that help us deal with those instinctual programs and facilitate our rise of consciousness beyond the animal. So we may not be, an animal like a cub at a wolf pack that's having, maybe the run of the liver that can't get its fair share after a kill or something, and then have instinctual kind of reactions to that. But we are, having more social, holograms of that same phenomena when we think that we're just not getting a good, thing dealt to us in life, or that we're not getting our fair share, that kind of thing. That plays out socially in other ways, within human circles. But the point I'm getting to is when we have those issues, it triggers off instinctual mechanisms that then trigger biological responses that will then become all of those things that medicine defines as disease in all its many forms. And when those biological programs are instigated, it happens first at the level of the psyche. And again, we're going on to our, higher realms of consciousness. That triggers a part in the brain. Now, what Dr. Hafner, who is the innovator of New German medicine, was able to do, he did 40,000 successive CAT scans that showed he was able to correlate all the different biological programs affected by different psychological assaults or traumas, and then understand exactly what part of the brain would be triggered that he could see on a CAT scan, and 40,000 times in a row they correlated perfectly. So this is beyond anything conventional medicine has ever done as far as offer evidence that what he's talking about is actually true. The reason why I'm actually bringing this up now is also there's 3 germ levels that embryologically evolve our entire body, until we're born into a full human form. And those 3 germ levels also have in their journey certain microbes that are along for the ride. And we would call those fungal, bacterial, and other kinds of organisms that are, associated with, the 3 germ levels. So for instance, if, as a practitioner, I see somebody that has a tumor in a certain type of tissue in the body that's made out of one of those germ levels, I'm also going to know on a bioterrain level which organisms I need to pay particular attention to, because when that biological program that necessitated, say, a growth, what we call tumor, those organisms need to be there in sufficient amount in order to degrade the tumor after that growth in the body has relieved the stress on the psyche. And we'll talk more about this in maybe about 10 more podcasts in a row. And that, allows those guys to digest the tumor. It did the job, alleviated the stress on the subconscious and the psyche, and allows us to, again, evolve out of human or out of lower animal instinctual awareness or reaction and go into higher human conscious awareness. So there's so much, and I hear just the discussions, and we're talking about microbes and, is this an electrical universe, and, just all coming at it. There's so much information that you have to put together to get a complete picture. And then when you do that, it becomes very practical. It becomes practical to engineers. It becomes practical to, doctor types. And it also, for the average individual, it becomes very practical as when you're informed on how you work, how the universe works, and how you work within the universe. Then you don't live in fear and ignorance, and you don't keep repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah. Wow. And I feel like we have a grander cycles going where humanity together is doing that. And it's interesting, someone asked, Lightworker asked, do you recommend the vaccines for, well, what's interesting is we know with these mad scientists, Frankenstein type vaccines, is that they have foreign animal DNA in them. And what do you know? You're injecting that foreign junk into your body to try to bring back those animals. As my dog is behind me, she heard the call, as to bring us back down into those the primal animalistic physicality versus the more evolved consciousness. So, and we're going to do a whole show on that next week. So we're coming up on 2 hours. Go ahead.
Okay. One last comment on that is, remember we talked about each DNA strand being an antenna. When you modify your own DNA by splicing in animal DNA, insect DNA, which is what vaccines do, won't go into how they do it, but that's exactly what they do. That's what they're designed to do. Then they bring you out of the human perceptive bandwidth, the human emotional bandwidth, the higher emotions, and then you're reduced. Basically, you're getting cut off from your humanity. And what vaccines are, there's nothing good about them. I wouldn't recommend one to my worst enemy. There's no such thing as a good vaccine. And anybody that thinks that we, eradicated, diseases from the planet, there's explanations on how that's exactly false. And so it is purposeful that we are being severed from our humanity. And so I guess the quick answer to that question is no.
Yeah. In fact, I would go as far as to say that vaccines are one of the main mechanisms in the last 100 years to make people sick and to create disease. It's all part of the great con game. But we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll dive deeper into the science and studies and your own clinical, experience next week, when we go into more of that information, which seems to be the hottest topic on the planet right now, due to everything we're experiencing with these forced shutdowns and quarantines and all that. Over a third of the planet right now is quarantined, which is insane. But today's topic is, I feel like, so important because it really brings to light that all of this is nonsense. Literally, all this doesn't matter. And control what's in your own arena of your experience. And if you can do that, and you can control, then you can be healthy. You can control your life, everything around you, create your happiness, I mean, even, God forbid, this is pretty dire, but they've seen it, even people that were in concentration camps with this kind of outlook were able to get through it. So no matter what the world is throwing at you, if you have the right mindset and you have these understandings, you're going to be fine. So we'll leave it at that. If you guys like this talk today, please join us on our Telegram group, t.me/Alfa Vedic, to continue the discussion. Also, if you want to support us and help us grow this podcast and get better setups we have better audio for our guests and all that, we need income. So you can support us on our Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/Alfa Vedic. We're putting up more and more content on there that's exclusive to our Patreon, stuff that we can't even really talk about in the public. I'm putting up more information that I'm finding. Bear, want to talk to you more about getting, used to do a lot of these blog posts on our site, maybe start doing some posts on there, really simple to do. So really, we're trying to grow our Patreon. It's also a co-op. So if you join the co-op section, you get a discount to our products, which you can find on our website, alfavedic.com. For those that aren't familiar with us, we are actually an off-grid farm, an herbal farm. We grow our own herbs that we make our own teas with. Our prime herb that we focus on is Jiao Gulan, the tea of immortality. We sold out on our first crop of bulk Jiao Gulan in a little less than a month. So we've rapidly expanding our operation. I know Bear and all of the team has been just pounding away outside, building trellises and trying to expand as fast as we can so that we can keep up with the demand. So biodynamically grown Jiao Gulan is one of our specialties, as well as all the other products from C60 to our new exciting protein line that we're coming out with that is immune focused. And something like, if athleticism, you're in there in the chat, I think something you'll be really excited about, because this is a game changer for macronutrition. And so we're not just, we do the podcast because we're passionate about getting the information out, but we're doers. We're out there. We're growing food. We're innovating products. I'm developing new technologies with friends for cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So there's a lot we're trying to do to provide solutions for the planet. Lando is out there really pushing the permaculture in our community. Bryden Lando and Stephanie Lando, our other partners down south, are doing what they have to do with, they just had a child and they're down in LA. And so we're a family company, really trying to help the world. So please support us. If you can, join our Patreon, patreon.com/Alfa Vedic, or go buy a bag of tea. It's exceptional. It's really, I'll say it right now. I know, it's the best tea out there. Like, we hear it over and over again. It's hand-picked, hand-packaged, hand-grown. It's amazing stuff. So if you're a fan of teas, check out our Tea of Immortalities or our standard caffeinated teas. Well, they're not standard by any means. Blend them with some coconut oil. Do it that way, or our thermogenics. Anyways, that's my spiel on that. Please support us if you like this content. And we'll see you next week to dive into the true nature of viruses and germ theory. Take it easy. Cheers.